being popular is something to be ashamed of rather than proud. It doesn't increase your credibility, it actually reduces it. And the more popular you are, the more it does so. It is something to explain and justify, right? At least with the current state of society. Greetings, this is Eugene the Philosopher, the greatest living philosopher after the unfortunate passing of Quentin Robert de Nameland, who has been the greatest living philosopher before me. In this video, I want to talk about popularity and specifically like big-scale popularity. I'm not talking about like a popularity among your friends, for example. No, I'm talking about the popularity in the bigger society, right? The famous people, popular people, specifically nowadays, right? And more particularly, my point would be that basically today you have to apologize for being popular, okay? So we'll talk about why popularity should be perceived as a stigma rather than, I don't know, a coat of arms or whatever is the opposite of stigma. Anyway, so we firstly shall consider 4 different aspects of this problem, namely sociological, moral, and logical, and political, okay? You may call them aspects, you may call them dimensions, you may call them whatever you wish, okay? And then we'll kind of summarize the whole point, and you'll hopefully agree with me that, yeah, popularity is something to apologize for, okay? So, sociological aspect, the first on the list. Let's think about, again, sociology, you know, the statistics, so to speak. So, if you are popular, it must be that a lot of people are like you, right? And the most people like you. So most people are average or very close to average, kind of by definition, right? That's what the sociology tells us, the Gaussian curve, etc., etc. So if you are popular, it must mean that you represent or provide something that an average human being wants or likes, okay? Something like what they are, essentially, right? So you must represent a way for them to feel good about themselves, essentially. That's kind of the nature of my argument. Which means that to get popular, you cannot be very virtuous, because the majority is not particularly virtuous, right? You cannot be very smart, because the majority would simply not understand you, probably, right? You cannot be very beautiful, because the majority is not very beautiful either. So they'll rather hate you for reminding them of this, right? Or something to that effect. So long story short, the majority will hate you if you excel in really anything, if you think about it. So to become popular, at least if we look at things in this sociological dimension, you have to be pretty average, right? Which kind of means that popularity is not, at the very least, it's not a boon, is that a word? It's not an advantage, you know, in a humanitarian sense, right? Okay, however, if we transition to the second, moral dimension, it may be even bad, actually. So, perhaps you can be not just the average, but actually even be worse than the average and serve the role of a sort of a clown or like a bad example, if you know what I mean, like a counterexample, sort of to make, like, live very badly to make the average people like themselves more through a comparison with you, essentially. That's the logic. And there is plenty of people like this, right? We're talking about, you know, the modern culture of glorified degeneracy, essentially. So, if we lived in times of, you know, like noble knights and fair ladies, then the popularity would probably mean that you are somewhat moral at the very least, okay? But we live in times of, you know, crypto scammers, you know, the incels, the Twitch thoughts, and OnlyFans creators, you know. So in times like these, if you are popular, it's kind of implied you're doing something very similar to what they are doing, because they're also popular, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have become popular, right? Such are the times, I'm sorry. So, in the sociological dimension, if you are popular, it means you are probably average in every respect, right? In moral dimension, if you are popular today, it probably means you are below average. Could be well below average, you know? So, yeah. Let's transition to the third dimension, which sounds kind of weird, I know. By the way, we have 4 dimensions, right? It's space-time. It's still science, guys. Anyway, the third dimension would be the logical dimension. So, and I'm specifically talking about a situation where a person becomes popular in one thing and then they speak on some other issues, okay? And I know it's been kind of regurgitated, is that even a word? Again, many times by many other people. I think Bill Burr actually has a point about this, but still, yeah. Somehow, today, if you've done one thing and became popular for this, you can do all kinds of other things just off of that, even if you're not qualified in them or whatever. And I'm specifically calling logical argument because I'm referring to, Aristotle's rhetoric, where he talks about the logos, So anyway, we're talking about, actors, singers, athletes, the whole celebrity culture. So I think it actually was Bill Burr. I actually don't remember quite, but I think he said this, like, well, who is an actor? It's someone who pretends to be other people and he's doing it really well, or she, right? Like, oh yeah, let's now listen to your opinion on climate change. Yeah, surely, like, surely this is a good thing to ask you about, right? Or like, you may think about, again, some musical artists, like, oh, this rich producer noticed me and paid for my production and promotion. Yeah, nice. This means you must be very smart, very virtuous and a paragon of all the best human qualities. So let me ask you for your wisdom or something, right? Let me ask you what you eat for breakfast. Yeah. Okay. And just a more modern iteration of the same thing is what I call professions that don't exist. See the eponymous video linked in the description, specifically influencers, who are really just masturbatory aids, if you think about it. I mean, most of them are women, like 80%, I think, of influencers are women. So they serve, again, as masturbatory aids for actually both men and women, right? For men, it's because, well, they just want them, right? And for women, it's because women also want this kind of life, right? Where they don't have to do anything really, they don't have to be qualified in anything really, and they're just handed everything for free, right? Because that's at least that's the legend of the life of an influencer, and that's why I call Instagram a Disney cartoons for adults, right? See the short with this thought in the description. By the way, a notice about my shorts is that they're all original. They're not taken from my longer videos like the one you're watching right now. Every short I record deliberately, so take a look. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. Anyway, streamers, right, would be another example. Like, who is a streamer? I already mentioned, like, what is the substance that they're streaming at you, right? It's a comedian, essentially, if you think about it, right? And somehow the streamers are popular and their opinion matters on every possible subject, somehow. Again, interestingly. Yeah. So, and like finishing the influencers line, like if you voluntarily choose a life of essentially a masturbatory aid, right? How would this make your opinions on ethics or, I don't know, or your habits or anything else, like any kind of opinion on science or philosophy, society and family matter, right? The answer is, they don't, right? So yeah. So your popularity, essentially, I'm kind of summing up this segment, means nothing, especially if you've in itself, because probably you may have become popular for something else to begin with, right? Right. And the fourth dimension, right, is political. And I'm just going to only briefly touch on this because, well, recently we've talked quite a lot about this, about the elites and blah, blah, blah. So today, more and more power, as you may have noticed, gets concentrated in the hands of the proverbial 1%, And you can see that the inequality steadily rises. Actually, like in my recent video, Big Lie of Socialism, see the link in the description, we've talked about this, right? Big Lie of Marxism, I think I said, or Socialism. I don't quite remember, but anyway, there I show how government regulation helps increasing inequality, right? Show on actual data. So, but regardless for the reasons of the rising inequality and just inequality as a steady fact, so to speak, if you become popular, it kind of means that these ultra-rich people are somehow sharing their power and their money, perhaps, directly or indirectly, with you, right? Because who has all the money? 1%. So if you get the money, you get it from the 1%. Which kind of means you're doing something that benefits them in one way or another, okay? You are the proverbial, sold out rock artist, right? So in this way or another, you promote the agenda of the elites. And we all know what that means nowadays, okay? Again, if you disagree, I mean, who am I to stop you? But anyway, I'm not gonna stay on this topic too much. Hope you get the idea, right? So, yeah, the conclusion, basically, from all of this is that being popular means appealing to kind of the lowest common denominator in every respect. You know, I am liked by the most average people. Great. Let's listen to you. You must be really smart. You must have really great, I don't know, habits, lifestyle, whatever. Very deep thoughts, probably. A lot of wisdom. Yeah. So this is pretty much the conclusion. And hopefully you can see at least the argument. You may disagree with this. Welcome to the comments. Or you may agree with this. Welcome to the comments as well. Okay. So the conclusion is very simple, actually, that being popular is something to be ashamed of rather than proud. It doesn't increase your credibility. It actually reduces it. And the more popular you are, the more it does so. It is something to explain and justify. Right? At least with the current state of society. By it, I mean the popularity. The popularity is something to explain and justify. So you're either doing something objectively bad, which is praised nowadays, or you are helping the financial / political / ontological elite, right? Which is also not very good, probably. Or you are just very average to begin with, right? Or you are simply unqualified to speak out because you're famous for something else in the first place. So I'm kind of summed up all four aspects. Or all of that combined, actually. I mean, I can't think of any examples, but there probably are. I just can't think, period. Right? So yeah. So once again, today being popular is a sin rather than a virtue, if you wish. So in every separate case, it requires some heavy apologies at the very least. And asking for permission to speak before speaking, rather than something like, I can say whatever I want because I'm so popular. Well, for the reasons I've outlined above, right, it's exactly the opposite. Because you are so popular, you need to first explain why you still have the right to speak. Okay? This should be our attitude. And don't show your fake, rags to riches biographies, like all the Bezoses and Musks love to do, right? Smart people are not buying this anymore. Your luck is that there aren't that many smart people, but that's why you're still popular. Huh? And by you, I don't mean you, obviously. I'm talking to the imaginary popular person, okay? Well, that will be all. Thank you for watching. The eons are closing. If you wish to support me, please consider joining my Patreon. That is patreon.com/philosopher. See the link in the description. Or if you have a scientific theory of your own and you'd like my help in developing it, please join my alternative science coaching program, also available through Patreon.